Amaru, Masklova. Yeah. Girl, you looking better than the photos. Need more of your time, so I'm watching you in slow-mo. Yeah. Busy schedule, but it doesn't really matter when it comes to you. Yeah. I can't wait till we're together, I can never get enough of you. Yeah. She said, what you want from me? Baby, what you want from me? Yeah, yeah. Nothing but your company. Sitting on the top with me. Yeah, yeah. Oh, girl, I can give you the time of your life right now, right now. Give you the moment you never could have right now, right now. Let me in, let me in, let me in your world. Yeah, let me in, let me in, let me in your life. Yeah. Yeah. She got that vibe, she got that go-go. Ooh. She mesmerized with her eyes when she's so close. Yeah. You gon' see when you get to know me. I'll be right beside you when you're lonely. How you be swinging with that body, put it on me. Woo. Won't you be the body in my story? She said, what you want from me? Baby, what you want from me? Yeah, yeah. Nothing but your company. Sitting on the top with me. Yeah, yeah. She said, what you want from me? Baby, what you want from me? Yeah, yeah. Nothing but your company. Sitting on the top with me. Yeah, yeah. Oh, girl, I can give you the time of your life right now, right now. Give you the moment you never could have right now, right now. Let me in, let me in, let me in your world. Yeah, let me in, let me in, let me in your life. Yeah. Yeah. Girl, I can give you the time of your life right now, right now. Give you the moment you never could have right now, right now. Let me in, let me in, let me in your world. Yeah, let me in, let me in, let me in your life. Yeah.
Driving through the New York rain, roll down my window and let the rain in. You call
can feel my body cold against the concrete, but I can't seem to get enough. My mind is fixed on what it wants. I just let you beat me. Looks can be deceiving. Let you get the best of me. In bed with my worst enemy. This is a no-go. I just can't take hold. This is a danger zone. Back up and get me home. This is a no-go. I just can't take hold. This is a danger zone. Back up and get me. So put your hand in mine. Follow me. Let me waste your time. Set up feet. Do some stupid shit. Take a seat. Let me waste your time. So put your better. Keep falling for your innocence, acting like you're into me. I know this is hopeless, moving in slow motion, trying to control my thoughts, but I can't stop our body talk. This is a no-go, I just can't take hold. This is a danger zone, back up and get me home. This is a no-go, I just can't take hold. This is a danger zone, back up and get me. So put your hand in mine. Follow me, let me waste your time. Set up feet, do some stupid shit. Take a seat, let me waste your time. Set up feet. Supper time.
Yo, what's up? Welcome to Alpha Omega University. This is the first stream ever. I'm gonna work on the start of the show here, right? I'm not a fucking streamer. I guess this is the first time I ever done anything like this, right? So y'all gonna have to bear with me. Listen, I know what the fuck I'm talking about when it comes to the game. But when it comes to streaming, I had to learn all this shit in the past few months. All right, so just letting y'all know, there might be some hiccups, there might be some issues around here and there, but we'll work them out together. All right. First of all, how your the Discord notifications? Do I have Discord notifications? What if I just close it, bro? What if I just close it? How about that? Hold on. And nobody can talk to me, dude. There, should be gone. Thank you. All right, so today we're going to be talking about the streams episode is the stream rundown, right? So every episode is going to have a name of a stream, except for the shows that are on Monday. So I know that for the people that are in the European time zone, you guys are kind of like confused, like, oh shit, like what day is it? Some people thought it was going to be tomorrow. Yeah, I mean, I live in the west coast of the U.S., right? So for me, it's Monday the 27th. So I know that it's confusing, but y'all get it eventually, right? But we're gonna be doing the streams every single day at 0 UTC, so at this exact time. It's going to be Mondays, Fridays, Saturdays. But that's my Mondays, Fridays, Saturdays, right? So whatever it is for you guys. But yeah, it's going to be at this exact time. And the Monday streams are going to be, they're going to be basically VOD review, right? So what I want to try to do with those is we're going to take a look at like some of the videos that are like how do I say this? The best videos to review of the week each week. Now, I know that there's some weeks that are not going to have like a lot of good ZvZ videos to review. So what we're going to do for those is I have a lot of videos that people submitted to me and stuff for, the last few months, and we'll review those, right? So the goal of the Monday streams is simply going to be to talk about a specific video, or maybe two if we have time, at the most 3, right? And we're just going to review everything. Now, when I say we're going to review the video, we're, some focus, sometimes it's going to be on the calling aspect. Other times it's going to be focusing more on the, like the player itself. So like if it's a tank, right, we're going to be looking at the tank itself. Just put on D&D Red on Discord. I don't know, man. I'll figure it out. Even like I said, this is my first time, man. So we're gonna have some hiccup, but it's all right. It's all right. I think it's going all right for now. But yeah, just let me know if there's any issues like with the sound or anything like that. Like if the music's too low, too high. I tried playing with it. I think the level I have it at right now, it's okay. But you guys let me know if it's all right. Anyway, so yeah, the Monday streams are gonna be VOD reviews, right? So we'll look at like calling. We'll look at strategy. We'll also look at the individual player. So like if it's like a healer perspective, right, then I'll try to focus on like what that healer is doing right and what that healer is doing wrong. The sound is great. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So yeah, and then or tank or locust or support, whatever it is, right? So that's going to be the Monday stream. So today is just like a special stream, right? So today is the stream rundown. I didn't want to just like jump right into doing the stream and then kind of not give you guys the layout or anything like that, right? I made some graphics that kind of show the schedule and stuff, but I know that like a lot of times like people kind of prefer to like talk about it and see how it goes, right? So I prefer to just do like this, like the intro stream. So it's going to be very like touch and go, right? We're going to be talking to you guys. If you guys have questions, I'm watching the chat, and I'll probably be watching it most of the entire episode. So yeah, like I'll be responding to you guys and everything. This is literally just kind of like an intro, and it also works as a test for me to kind of see if there's any issues that I need to fix on my end before the first stream, right? So the first stream is gonna be on Friday, right? So that's 4 or 5 days from now, depending on where you are. And that stream is gonna be it's called Evolving Metas. Evolving Metas is the first stream. So basically what I'm going to do with that stream is I'm going to talk about all the streams. I'm not actually going to be like teaching anything or explaining any concepts on that stream. I'm actually just going to be talking about all the metas that have been in the game since the game began, right? And so the reason I wanted to start with that was they're slightly too loud right now. Okay, I'll fix them, but I'm not gonna fix them right now, scouts. But I'll fix them after. Thank you. So, yeah, so the Evolving Meta stream is gonna be about basically just looking at all the different metas that have been in the game, and we're gonna be looking. I did so much research for that stream, man, because I had to find videos of like 5 years ago, 4 years ago, like different times, right? So it's actually like for the guys that have been playing the game for a while, it's gonna be. It's going to be pretty nostalgic, that stream. But I wanted to start it out that way because one of the first things that I'm gonna kind of talk about and stuff is basically how the game's metas have changed, but the game itself has not changed, right? And then I'll explain those things in the episode after that. So I tried to make it so that Friday, Saturdays are going to be both the teaching streams, and they're gonna kind of work with each other, right? So they're gonna have to do something with each other for the most part. There's gonna be some that don't really have anything to do with each other, but that's just the way it is. So today's episode is literally just what we're doing right now. It's just explaining what the stream is, what we're gonna be doing, and we're gonna spend a portion talking about who I am. And the reason is because I know that a lot of new people are like, who the fuck is this guy? Why should I listen to him? Right. And I, you know, I've been in your shoes. I agree. Right. It's like, you never heard of this name, you know, Khelron, AO, who the fuck is this guy? Right. So, you know, I'm gonna explain to you guys, you know, my experience with the game and things like that. So anybody have any questions before I get into like the specifics about the stream of what we're gonna be looking at? I'm gonna give you guys some Q&A time every once in a while. Also with the timing, like I'm trying, like I said, this is my first time ever doing something like that. How am I so handsome? Dude, you can't even see me. I don't have a camera. Who the fuck is this guy? Yeah, I'm gonna answer that. All right, so what the stream's about, I kind of told you guys already, like what we're going to be looking at with the ZvZ stuff, right? But essentially we're going to be talking about, like, we're going to start off very broad, and with every week that passes by, we're going to start getting a little bit deeper into different things, right? So just think about that. The first couple episodes, and you can look at the schedule if you have it pulled up. If not, you can scroll down on the Twitch, and it's right there. It's just split up in 3, but it's right there. So basically what we're doing with the teaching streams is we're going to start really broad, right? That's why I'm talking about metas. We're talking about, like, you know, global things, right, for the game. And then we're going to go start getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And eventually we're going to get to the point where we're talking about, like, individual, like, weapons and individual roles and individual, you know, things that people do. So we'll be talking about tanks, DPS, healer, support, calling, scouting, leadership in general. The thing that I want you guys to know is this stream is going to be focused on ZvZ, but that doesn't mean that we're only going to look at from the moment you dismount up until the moment you either die or, like, the enemy routes, right? ZvZ is very encompassing in many different ways, where basically we're going to be talking about things such as leadership off the field, right? Because when it comes to ZvZ, if you don't have leadership that's good off the field, that's going to affect how you play on the field, right? Like whether you're willing to die, right? Whether you're willing to push through that choke when the caller says so, right? If you respect the caller, then you'll follow his calls. If you don't respect the caller, you won't follow his calls. And that will determine basically the outcome of the ZvZ, right? So basically everything and anything to do with ZvZ, economy as well, right? Whether it's personal economy or guild economy, right? All those things I have experience with, right? So I will not talk about things on this stream that I don't have personal experience with, right? And I've played this game a long time, and again, we'll get into that later, but essentially I've experienced all these different things in many different times, right? So at the end of the day, one of the things I want to put forward right away, everything that I say here is my opinion, right? You can disagree with me, you can think I'm terrible, or I'm an idiot or whatever, and that's fine, right? That's fine. You don't have to agree with me, right? And the point is not necessarily for you to just kind of like listen to me and do whatever I say. No, I mean, I'm doing this stream because I want to make sure that I kind of get my voice out to as many people as possible in the game, because I've been told by many people before that basically they have benefited from me talking to them and teaching them and giving them part of my experience, right? So, I mean, if you decide that, you know, what I'm saying you don't agree with, or it's not for you, like, that's cool. I mean, this stream is not for everybody, right? So this stream is, you know, if you want to learn some shit from me, then, you know, go ahead and listen. If not, that's cool. Like, but the one thing I don't want to do with this stream is I don't want to necessarily go into the field of trash talking, right? And that's very important to me because, like, I've talked shit a lot in the time that I've been in Albion, right? Like, basically anybody who I've ever been against in the game, I've shit talked, right? But that's just because it's part of the game. But with this stream, it's a completely different thing, right? Because we're going to be looking at videos. We're going to be looking at things that people do, callers and individual players and whatever, right? And I'm going to basically criticize, and I'm going to say, this person fucked up in this way, shape, or form. They did this wrong. They did blah, 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 right? So it sounds like I'm talking shit, but I'm not, right? The reason that I'm talking about the bad things that people do is because that's the only way to learn, right? And it's not necessarily to learn what that person did wrong, but what you could do wrong as well if you were in that person's situation, right? And so in order to learn from everybody's mistakes, we have to be able to criticize other people, right? So like sometimes I'll be like, damn, this guy plays like shit, right? Just because I say they play like shit doesn't mean that I'm saying that's a shit person. All right. I gotta give this disclaimer now, man, because it's like 2023, and every year it's giving feedback is more frowned upon nowadays, right? But anyway, so that's what the stream's about, is ZvZ and everything encompassing it. We're gonna start off real broad, and then we're gonna work our way in, right? What we're gonna do, and I really want you guys to focus on this, right? And this kind of goes hand in hand with what I'm talking about with not necessarily taking my words as like attacking somebody, right? Look at the bigger picture. And that's the point of this stream, is I'm gonna be looking at individual fights, right? I'm gonna be dissecting them, reading through them, see what everybody's doing right or wrong. But that's not what I want you guys to remember. I don't want you guys to remember, for example, like, I don't know, like you're in the east corner of the territory and the enemy's south of you, right? And they're about to engage on you. And it's like, what should you do? Oh, you should run, north, right? And it's like, don't remember that exact situation. That's not what I want you to do. And so then when you go and see yourself on the east corner of the territory, you're like, oh, I should run north. No. You're missing the point, right? You need to think broader, right? You need to think each situation is individual. No situation in the game will ever repeat itself. Same with history, right? And disclaimer here, I'm going to school right now. I'm in the university, and my major is history, right? So there's gonna be some history thrown around and history jokes and shit like that, all right? And I also am a dad, so I can make dad jokes, and that's all right. All right. So anyway, but yeah, you want to look at concepts, right? You want to look at, well, in this situation, this is what happened. So then I am now better suited to make a decision about what I should do, simply because I understand why this happened, as opposed to this happened, so I need to do this, right? I know it's kind of confusing, but essentially just focus on long-term concepts. And the reason is because over time, you're gonna fall back on the concepts. You're never gonna actually memorize, if this happens, I should do this. You're not gonna, and even if you memorize it, honestly, in a fight, you're not gonna do it. Like, it's just not gonna happen, right? So what you need to do is kind of get it inside your head where you understand what's happening. And the best players in the game do this, by the way. Like, they may not actively know that that's what they're doing, but that's exactly what they're doing. The best players in the game, they understand, like, oh, if the enemy moved west, I know why they moved west. They didn't just move west because they wanted to move west. They moved west because there's a better choke over there or something like that, right? And they understand what that means. So then if there's a better choke over there, then that means that I need to do whatever, or go around, or things like that, because it helps you kind of broaden yourself. So focus on the long-term concepts. Don't focus on individual situations. I already talked about the stream schedule. Like I said, Mondays is going to be VOD review. Friday, Saturdays are going to be pre-planned streams, which is basically like kind of like today. I kind of wrote out an outline, right? And I'm just going through the outline. The next thing, the stream content itself, I already talked about that as well. So what this stream or who this stream is for, that's the next part. So basically, this stream is not necessarily for brand new players, okay? And although it's a teaching stream, it's not for people who literally picked up the game a week ago. Okay, like it's not. If you did just pick up the game a week ago, then have fun. You can enjoy this, but a lot of the things that I talk about are gonna go over your head. It's gonna be really hard, and to be honest, you're not really gonna enjoy it too much. So with that being said, this stream is also not necessarily for people that have played for a very long time, right? This stream, I'm going to try to talk about very complex topics and complex concepts that really, really matter and affect your gameplay. But I'm going to try to talk about it in a way that is very easy for everybody to understand. And when I say everybody, everybody with a basic knowledge of the game. So by basic understanding of the game, basic knowledge of the game, I'm talking about somebody that at least has played a couple ZvZs, right? And when I say ZvZ, at least like a 20 versus 20 or more. Like if you've only played like a 15 versus 15, 10 versus 10, it's kind of getting dicey, right? Unless you've played that a lot, right? But if you've played at least like a 20v20, 30v30, then you're starting to kind of understand the mechanics of ZvZ. Okay, and then this stream would be useful to make sure that I'm able to explain everything to those guys, right? So that they can understand and they can keep up. I'm gonna have to repeat things multiple times, right? I'm gonna have to basically say the exact same thing in like 2 or 3 different ways, because not everybody learns the same. Okay, everybody learns at different speeds. Everybody learns and understands with different ways and different mentalities, right? So what I'm asking you guys is kind of be patient, right? I'm gonna make sure that I try to explain and teach to as many people as possible, but that means that some things are gonna kind of go slower. We're gonna take a little extra time with things, okay? If you're one of those guys that just picks up shit super quick, then you know what, fucking, enjoy it. And then when you hear me repeating, just kind of like tune out for a few seconds, and then, we'll get back into it, right? But it's just what we have to do to try to make sure that we involve as many people as possible, right? With all that being said, I don't want you guys to start thinking that this stream is kind of like useless for people who have played this game a long time. It's really, really not, right? The majority of the concepts that I'm going to be talking about, and I really do mean like the high majority, like 80% plus of the things. Like if you look at the schedule and you read through the titles, that's why I put it out, the titles. So that way, oh damn, that is nice. So the titles, I put them there so that you guys can see basically the direction that the stream is going to go, right? And so this direction that we're going in, you can see there are some really high level topics, right, in there. So there's actually a lot of things you can learn even as a player who has played this game for a long time. And the reason I say this is because I've personally helped teach players who have played for years, right, many times before. Okay, so, and the fact that they kind of they hear me point something out in a video to them or something, right? And they're like, oh damn, I didn't think about that, right? So all I'm saying is, it's very useful for people who have played the game a long time. And if you know what, if you're like an absolute fucking god in the game, then you know what, it is what it is. At least hang out and just listen as a refresher, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, there's gonna be something for everybody, right? But I do have to tell you guys, it's not, if you've only played like a week or two, and you don't really know what a ZvZ even means, right? Then this is gonna go over your head. It really will. So, all right, let me take a break here. Like I said earlier, I'm trying to time the amount of time I end up speaking about certain things and trying to give you guys a chance to ask questions and stuff. It's not super important right now, not with this stream, but I know that there's gonna be some streams later on in the future that are gonna be really, really complex topics that I want to make sure that you guys get a chance to ask questions if you guys want. So, like I said, I'm not used to streaming and all that. I really am not, but I'm getting used to the timing. So yeah, there's always room to improve no matter how good you are. That's true, Lolly, 100%. There's so many players that people say, oh, they're the best at, I don't know, Brimstone. They're the best at, whatever, heavy mace, whatever. But it's there's always things you can get better at, right? And that also leads me to another point. I'm telling you guys all the things I know, right? But I want you guys to really understand, I don't know everything. I really, really, really don't. Like, I'm not a absolute know-it-all of everything in ZvZ. I've learned a lot from people who have only played a month or 2 or 3, right? And you know, it's the ability to learn from everybody that really makes you succeed. Okay, so just because somebody hasn't played as much as you, or hasn't quote unquote achieved as much as you in the game, does not mean you can't learn from them. And it doesn't mean that you know, you're just perfect in every sense. Everybody makes mistakes. I mean, I make them all the time too. Some players are egotistic or just don't VOD review. Andruka said, yeah, I mean, it's true. It's true. So ego is it's actually one of the sections in one of the videos later on, right? I think it's like an episode like 8 or something like that. Anyway, yeah, it's a section, right? And the reason it's a whole section on its own, having ego, is because ego really, really hinders your ability to learn, man. Like, it's the craziest thing, right? So I joined Arch to help them out and you know, to teach them and you know, just help them make better and stuff like that, right? I joined them like at the beginning of last season, and I stayed with them basically the entire season. And you know, it's really interesting. A lot of guys were really cool, really awesome dudes, whatever, right? But there were a couple dudes who were actually kind of, I don't know, man. It was odd. It seemed like the people who have achieved the least and have the least reason to have an ego had the biggest ego, where it kind of stopped them from learning. It's the weirdest thing, man. I've encountered people who don't learn because of ego, but that was another level, man. That was kind of crazy. Some people's mental does not allow them to improve. Yeah, that's what it is, man. Too rigid, don't reflect enough. Yeah, that's another thing. Too rigid, right? Marwell says some people are too rigid. It's true, man. The thing about being too rigid, it's kind of like you're kind of stuck in your way, right? You're kind of like, you've done things a certain way for however long, and then you're just like, that's the way to do things. And it's like, even if other people tell you like, no, look, there's a better way, and it's just like, no, right? Because you've done it a certain way this whole time, so you're just gonna keep doing it that way. I mean, for some people it works, but for the majority, it stops them from getting better. Right, it's about the trash talks. Fiends, you are nice. Oh yeah. Yeah, so with that being said, it's like I'm not above learning myself, right? And in fact, that's a reason that I'm still playing the game, because when it comes to the game itself, and this will kind of lead us into the next topic, which is going to be why you should listen to me. Oh wait, before we go in there, I'm going to try to make sure the streams are between an hour and 2 hours. I will try my absolute best not to go over 2 hours. The main reason, and I'm kind of shooting more for like about an hour and a half, to be honest. Like, that's kind of what my goal is. This stream today, I anticipate it's going to be a little shorter, simply because it's the intro stream. But generally speaking, about an hour and a half. And the reason I don't want to do like more than that, like I don't want to do more than like 2 hours, is because truthfully, if I'm trying to teach people something, I don't expect y'all to fucking listen to 3 hours of shit fucking 3 times a week, man. Like that like, come on, right? That's unrealistic, right? So I want you guys to make sure I want to make sure you guys can get as much benefit of the stream as possible without having to put as much time in as possible. Another thing about the stream, I purposely made this stream except for the Monday streams, which are going to be VOD review streams, right? The teaching streams that are Fridays and Saturdays, I purposely made them in a way where, for the most part, you're going to be able to listen to them without watching the stream, right? So kind of like a podcast, okay? The reason I'm doing that is because I understand that, you know, sometimes people want to go and like, you know, they want to listen to it when they're driving. They want to listen to it when, you know, they're fucking doing whatever at work and on their breaks or whatever, right? And they don't necessarily, they can't really be watching it, right? So I want to make sure that you guys are able to kind of use this stream as kind of like your time whenever you got a little bit of time, or you're driving or whatever to work, back from work. I know I used to do similar things like that, podcast stuff like that. So, and also just kind of like watching a kind of deadish screen for an hour and a half. It'll kind of get tiring. You know, you can also play fucking the game, right? You can also be playing your game, like playing Albion, play whatever fuck you're playing, and then just listen to it in the background, right? Like that's yeah, like Dennis, like yeah, I do a lot of driving for work. Yeah, exactly, it's true. I don't have the VODs on Spotify, but I will be putting them on YouTube. I already have a YouTube channel. If you scroll down, the link should be there. There's no videos on it, but that's because I'm only going to be putting in these videos. So I don't want to make it hard for you guys, because I have my own my own personal channel where I have my videos and stuff like that from like a long time now, right? And that's actually what we're watching right now is videos from my channel. But yeah, I didn't want to mix it up for you guys. And I also, that's another thing, I want to make sure that the episodes are numbered, so that way if you ever like forget, or you know, like you don't remember where you were, like just remember the episode number and it's going to tell you, right? The VOD review episodes are not going to be named episodes. They're just called VOD review 1, VOD review 2, whatever, and so on, right? Because I want to make sure I just differentiate between the two. So it's easier for you guys to kind of get to the videos that you want to watch. On YouTube, I'm also going to try to like section off different sections, because I know in YouTube there's that little part where you can do that, right? Where like you can title, quote unquote, title different sections. So you can just kind of scroll past whatever sections you don't want to watch or are not relevant to you. And that's cool too. So I just want to make it as easy as possible for you guys, so that you guys don't have to like watch the whole thing. If you don't want to, you can just watch the parts that you want. So I forgot the point that brought me to all this. But anyway, let's move on. The next part is basically why you should listen to me, right? Who I am, what I've done. And so basically, I've been around since the game's been around, right? I started playing on release in 2017. Technically, it was like 2 or maybe 3 weeks after the release of the game. Give me a second. I got to drink some water, man. Got to stay hydrated. Yeah, so like 2 or 3 weeks after the game released, I started playing. And I started playing in a guild, a tiny little guild called Cypher Pole. Just a bunch of random dudes, I guess. I came out in Bridge Watch and they saw me, and they just gave me a random guild invite, and I was like, cool, and I just accepted it. I had no idea, right? And then they were in Arch. Now, within a month of release, that guild kind of crashed. I don't know why. There was some quote unquote drama, and this is a teaching moment, right? Like, Albion drama's literally been around since the game started, man. Okay, like that is the craziest shit. Like, if you guys think like, oh my god, there's so much drama in Albion now, it's like, no, man, that shit's been around forever. So apparently there was some drama with the leadership or whatever. I didn't really know them or anything. And what happened was the guild dissolved, and we ended up joining Awful Company. Well, whoever wanted to joined Awful Company. So that's where I started, right? That's really where I actually started, is an Awful Company with Gluttony in Arch. So at that time, we were the people that are kind of newer. You guys don't understand how difficult it was back then to fame farm, right? Fame farming was like 100 times more fame farm per spec required than it is now, right? Like, faming now is like you kill a mob and like you're leveling up and shit. Back then it's like you had to kill like 30 fucking mobs to just get a slight like move on the bar for spec. It's pretty crazy. So because of that, there were 4 dungeons in the old map, right? There were 4 dungeons in each continent. Anglia technically had 8, I guess. But yeah, we used to be in Mercia, if anybody remembers that. And there was four dungeons that we used to play in. Yeah, I've heard horror stories about old fame farming. Yeah, man, it was crazy, man. It was tough. It was tough to fame farm back in the day, and the mobs didn't give you much. So anyway, those 4 dungeons, it was like Arcag Chasm, Stone Top Sink. That's the one that we used quite a bit. Darkroot Hollow, and who remembers the last one? The ice one, the snow one. No, that was wasn't Arcag. I can't remember, man. I can't remember. Meltwater. No, I don't know. Anyway, there were 4 of them, right? And so we used to play in Stone Top Sink for a long time, right? And basically everybody in the game kind of knew that Arch hanged out in there. And so what we used to do, we would split up the dungeon, and we would have 50 people total. 50 people fame farming inside the dungeon at all times. Like between 18 UTC to like 05, 04, it was 50 people in those dungeons, right? All Arch. And what would happen is if there was a blob that would come in to try to like, dive the dungeon, the static dungeon, we would all A out at the same time, and we would all be in the same comms, and we would fight them right outside. Once we would kill them, we'd go back inside, we keep fame farming, right? So that was basically the way you ZvZ back in the day. Like in order to ZvZ back in the day, you kind of had to fame farm and just wait till somebody dove you. It wasn't like today, right? Where there's objectives in the map and all kinds of shit, all kinds of reasons why people fight. It wasn't like that. It really wasn't like that. So what I'm saying is, at the very beginning of the game, the opportunities to call and to ZvZ in general were very low, right? And I started calling. So the game released around like July 2017, and I started calling around like December-ish 2017, right? There was no wars. There was wars, but not at the very first 6 months. The first war was Woke Alliance, that was Exertion and Team Casualty, and some other guilds. And they were fighting mainly against Money Guild, and Money Guild was Oops Alliance, right? So that was the first war. But the first war was season 1, and that season started like in December 2017, if I remember correctly, right? So basically I started calling like 30 to 40 man groups on average at the end of 2017. Okay. So I, over time I started calling more and more, right? And just getting more experience. Now I'll tell you guys, like I wasn't good. Like, but then again, like nobody in the game was good, right? Except for the people that have played beta. They kind of knew better, like what to do and stuff. But like the majority of the game didn't play beta, right? Even though like people that played beta tend to think that the majority of the people in the game at that time played the beta, it wasn't true. Like the vast majority of the players did not play beta. And so basically the people that played beta were part of that first war, right? And the people that didn't really play that first war was everybody else, and everybody else was the ones that, I mean, we didn't even know what was a good reason to war. I mean, we didn't even know what was a good reason to ZvZ. The only reason we ZvZ'd in the first place was literally because people were diving our fucking dungeon and we wanted to fame farm. That's it. Like, there was no objectives, right? Because all the territories were fought over by GVG teams, which are now called Crystal GVTs, right? But same shit, the 5v5s. So all the territories out there were run by that. So it's like, it wasn't necessarily important to war for territory or to ZvZ in general, right? And then also remember, the majority of people back then in the beginning, we didn't know how to make money, and there weren't that many ways to make money back then, right? Not like it is now. Like now it's fucking easy, man. Like I know some people struggle with money in the game now, but that's honestly just because you don't want to do the little things that are simple ways to making money, right? Like how to make money is super easy now. It's just time consuming and nobody wants to waste their time, right? So that's the truth. But back then, nobody knew how to make money. Like there were ways to make money, but nobody knew really like good ways. And the people that did know those ways, they didn't tell anybody, right? So this is why you had a bunch of like fucking cartels and shit that like the Khelron cartel that like they owned all of the crafting stations in Khelron, and they did all that shit. So that's why all those things happen. It's because people didn't know, right? And when I say people didn't know about the economy, I'm also talking about ZvZ. People didn't know how to ZvZ. The earliest cartel still exists, yeah, but it ain't like it was, man. It really is not like it was. So basically, we didn't know how to ZvZ, man. Like everybody would run with different weapons that, like, fuck it, I don't know, man. Like you'd see so many warbows, in ZvZ. You'd see so many just random fucking weapons, right? Just claws and shit. Like be like, yeah, I can fucking like execute a healer. It's like with the claws, like what? But we didn't know, right? We didn't know. So that's just the way it was. So what I'm saying is, I didn't start with the people. I didn't start calling with the people that already knew the game. I started with a group of people that were learning just like me, right? And so one of the people I started learning to call from at the very beginning was Lint Liquor, right? And now you guys can say all you want about like, oh, he's a shedder, ha ha ha, whatever. It's a meme, right? But the truth is for a guy that was learning at the time, he was as good as it gets back then at the start, right? That like unless you were being called by people like Ellipsis or Plevicus Derpicus or fucking who else was calling? I can't remember all the fucking callers back then, right? But like essentially, unless you were being called by some of those, man, like you didn't really have anybody who really knew what the fuck they were doing. So yeah, so I kind of learned from Lint, right? I learned from a couple of the other guys from Arch, and I kind of just went off from there, right? I also learned by doing the static dungeon, diving ZvZ, defending the dungeon, I should say. And that was basically my 2017, 2018 time, right? And I want to say like middle to late 2018, we decided, so Team Casualty had a home plot. And if you don't know what a home plot was basically the equivalent of a hideout nowadays, but like it was like a whole like territory right before, and enemies couldn't walk into it, right? And they were limited. They were very limited. There weren't a lot of them. And that was literally the only way you can actually live in the Outlands, right? Back then. So super important, my point, right? Super important. So Team Casualty got hacked. One of the guys got hacked, or so the story goes. I mean, I don't know 100%, but basically they dropped the home plot, and they lost like billions of silver. Now, billions of silver back then, like even just a couple billion silver back then, compared to today, in today's money, that's like fucking like what, 20 billion? Some shit like that, bro. Like it was massive. It was massive, right? It was crazy. And so anyway, so Team Casualty wanted to go for the season at the start of season 3, right? And this happened between season 2 and season 3. Now, remember that, so season 1, Oops won that war against Woke, right? And because of that, Money Guild basically went uncontested. So they won season 1, but season 2, they were like basically uncontested. Nobody was fighting against Oops. They were just the best, both in GVG and in ZvZ. They had so many fucking people. It didn't even matter, right? Team Casualty was like, we're taking season 3. And because of that, this is why that guy got hacked, and this is why all those things happened, right? It was kind of like a fuck you against the guild, Team Casualty, to try to make sure they didn't go for the next season. Now, again, I may be wrong about the specific details, but that's basically what happened. All right. And then what happened was, Arch, Awful Company, so Gluttony, like talked to the guys in Team Casualty, and we decided, we agreed to help them, right? We agreed to help them. And so I was like, well, if we're going to help them, I'd rather be in their guild and help them inside their guild, because I can help them more that way. And I also want to have the experience to learn from those callers, because at that time, Ellipsis and Plevicus Derpicus, they were the best callers in the game at the time. So I wanted to make sure I got the ability, because again, I was learning to call, right? I mean, at that point, I guess I was a caller and title and everything, but I wasn't as good as Ellipsis or Plevicus, not even close. So I want to learn from them. So I went to Team Casualty, I joined them, and that's when I got my first season win, right? It was a lot of fighting, a lot of ZvZing, a lot of back and forth, a lot of shit. And yeah, I mean, we won that season. So that was my first season that I ever won with Team Casualty. And I learned a lot from those callers. So then when I came back season 4, I came back to Arch, right? And what happened was basically I had this brand new idea about how a Zerg should be run and how open world fights should take place, right? All these ideas were because of my time in Team Casualty, right? Now, when I came back to Arch, I tried to start implementing those ideas and stuff. But the problem was that there was a lot of pushback, right, from leadership in Arch. And the reason was because they wanted Arch to just be a place where there was no mandatory CTAs. There was no, like, I guess, hassles, right? It was kind of like just like, we're getting together, we're going to hang out, we're going to have fun. And that's cool. But I wanted something more, right? I wanted to be more serious in calling and all that. And so with the little bit, even though I there were some issues between leadership and stuff, I was still able to do different things and mass up the Zerg to a certain extent to fight against the largest Zergs. And I ended up fighting against PoE. And because we decided we wanted to have a oh shit, are we watching fucking StarCraft now? Yo, that's crazy. Hold on, that's crazy. Oh, look, it's Arch. Yeah, so Mario StarCraft 2 Legend. That's true, bro. That's facts. That's facts. Yo, let me know if that shit comes up again. I do watch StarCraft sometimes, man. It's fun. All right, so yeah, so that's what happened in my time there. And then I went back to Arch, and there was a lot of trouble, but I still got to fight other people. And I decided, you know what? I want to get a zone, right? And at the time, Arch had never had a zone before. Like, we had taken zones like during like reset days and shit, but obviously we never held them. We were never able to hold them. And so my goal was to try to take a zone and hold it. Now, the way you can hold a zone back then, you couldn't just launch on a zone. You had to launch through what war camps. They were called war camps, right? So you would launch from a war camp, and then you would have to like take over the zone, take over the territory that's in that war camp zone. And then you can launch to a neighboring zone from there, right? So you kind of had a leapfrog. So basically, if we controlled a war camp zone, and then we controlled a zone around the war camp, and we just protected that fucking war camp and didn't let anyone launch on us, we didn't even have to have a GVG team, right? Or so we thought. That was the mentality. But essentially, we didn't have GVG teams, and the GVG teams at the time were just too good anyway. So even if we tried to have a GVG team, it wasn't going to work. But I was like, no, I want to have a zone. I want to have a zone for Arch, right? I want to make sure that, Arch has a home. And the reason is because we got pushed out of Mercia. We got pushed out of Stonetop Sink, which was like our quote unquote home without owning that territory. And so because of that, I kind of was like, no, we got to have our own place. So there was a zone at the south corner of the continent Cumbria. And on the south corner, it was the territory called Coom Tor, right? And so next to Coom Tor, there was a zone that had 2 territories in it. Back then, there were some zones that had 2 territories in them. And so I wanted to own the zone next to it, which was Urchfont Hill, right? And then Coom Tor was the south corner, which was right next to it, which is where the war camp was. So we had to own both Urchfont Hill and Coom Tor. The problem was that these were owned by PoE at the time, okay? PoE was very strong at the time. And so, we weren't, right? We weren't strong at the time at all. And so what happened was basically we had to group up, mass up, and try to fight for these things. And so there was one reset day. It was season 4. I think it was like the second reset day. That was the objective. So we took it, right? We took Urchfont Hill, and then we took Coom Tor, and we wanted to keep them. The problem was going to be, now can we defend them? And PoE masked up 100% and everything. Well, they tried to launch without like whatever, but we showed up and we stopped them, right? So then the next day they full masked. They completely full masked. And I think I have the video actually. I can show you guys. yeah, so this is the video. I'm not gonna put the sound. But yeah, so that's the fight right there, right? So basically we were trying to hold this war camp. Right there's the war camp on the east. You can see it on the mini map. So basically I'm calling this fight, right? And we have all these people here, and we're fighting against PoE, who was an experienced like ZvZ at that time, right? Not super experienced. They weren't the best, but they were really, really good. Way better than us. And so my calls are they're not good to today's standards, but you know, for being back then, it was good enough where we won, right? And we completely collapsed on them. I split the Zerg into two sides, and you know, you might think now, you might be like, okay, you split it into two Zergs, okay, whatever, it's not a big deal. But you got to realize this shit was literally 5 years ago, man, right? Like the fact that I basically did that, where I split the Zerg in two and then collapsed on the enemy from two angles, right? Like that was not something that people did until like, you know, more recently, right? Like people learned over time. So what I'm trying to say is I've called a very fucking long time, right? Like that's my point. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people, because they don't hear my name too often, like they don't really know who I am. They think I'm just a scout, right? A lot of people say that, man. They don't understand that before the majority of the callers that are like legit, the majority of the callers that are playing right now, that are like the top callers in the game, right? Before they even started playing, I was calling these big Zergs, right? So that's just who I am, right? That's what I've done in the game, right? So then after season 4, after season 3, we won Team Casualty. With Arch, we held Urchfont Hill and Kumtor for a little while, right? A few weeks. But the problem happened that essentially leadership told me I basically, they didn't tell me that I couldn't mass anymore, but because they didn't like mandatory CTAs. That's what it was, right? They didn't like mandatory CTAs. They wanted to be everything just chill, like relaxed game, right? So the ideas didn't align there. That's all it is, right? So basically I was told, oh no, don't fight these guys, don't fight those guys. This is also the time when Blue Army was like on the come up, right? And I say the come up, but to be honest, like they were already really strong. This is season 4. This is when Blue Army won the first season, right? That Blue Army won. And so they were very, very strong. They weren't necessarily the best by far, but they were very, very, very strong. And so I felt like the best way to train my Zerg was to fight against them. And so I would constantly pick fights against them all the time, right? I would talk shit on Reddit and shit just so that I can make sure that like they came to fight, right? And so we ended up fighting them in Urchfont Hill many times. Like Mojo was calling, right? So I was actually fighting against Mojo many times. I fought against Sucks many times. You guys know that zone, it was called Elmwood, or in fact, you know those zones that we have currently in the map that have like, they're the wood zones that have like a giant hill in the center, and it's like a hill that, like, you know, if you get up on that hill, like there's no way out, right? There's still some zones that have that layout. So I'm the first one. They don't have those anymore. They took them out. Oh, that sucks, man. Those yeah, you would was like that. Yeah, old Murder Gulch Divide. No, it was a wood zone. It was a wood zone. I think Murder Gulch Divide is like a swamp. No. Anyway, so it was like a giant fucking hill, right? That you would go and like fight on it. And the thing is that hill became iconic for massive fucking good fights, good ZvZs, right? It just did. What people don't know is that I'm the first one that took that hill in the first place, to fight on that hill, right? Before I took that fight on that hill, and I took it against Blue Army. I think it was Sucks that was calling. And from that point forward, like we actually killed a lot of Blue Army that day, right? And so that's why it made effect on people. They were like, yo, that hill's great, because how the fucking Arch kill so many Blue Army? Now at the end of the day, they won the fight, right? But the battle board was kind of even-ish, where it was like, oh damn, like they did something like different. From then on forward, basically every caller, whoever could fight in that hill was doing it, right? So again, People don't know these things, right? And the only reason I'm talking about all these things now is because, again, I want to make sure that you guys understand where I'm coming from, right? I've never really talked too much about all the things I've done in the game, simply because I'm not the type of person to try to make people listen simply because I know a lot, right? Because I have a philosophy that I feel like you should just listen to everybody in general. But for the stream, I understand that you guys are not going to fucking listen at all if I don't tell you guys, you know, how long I've been around, right? So that's why I'm doing it. But essentially, you know, that's what happened with that hill. That was season 4. Fought against Blue Army many times. 90% of the fights, Blue Army beat us. But almost every single fight was even numbers, right? So that means that we did beat them a few times. And you might say, oh, well, like, obviously. Yeah, but you're using today's mentality about ZvZ. You don't understand how much better everybody in the whole game is at ZvZ today than we were as a whole back then, right? Like, back then, it wasn't uncommon for a Zerg that was pretty good to go 100-0 against Zergs that were trash. Anyway, so season at the end of season 4, I basically left Arch. There wasn't any problems, like specific problems, but I left Arch simply because our ideas didn't align, right? Arch leadership wanted it to be a more relaxed, like, well, I mean, what Arch is, right? They wanted to be more chill, like just having fun, all that, not being very serious about the game. I wanted to be more serious about the game, and I wasn't gonna do that in Arch, and I knew that, and that's okay. So that's why I just left, right? And with the idea of I want to go and learn from the best, I joined Blue Army. Right before the start of season 5, I joined Blue Army because I you know, they were, again, like, they were one of the best at the time, and so I joined them to try to learn from them and try to learn from Mojo and try to learn from the players there. And season 5, season 6, we won the seasons. So those were the second and third seasons I won. When I was in Blue Army, when I joined Blue Army, most people thought I joined as a meme because I always talk shit about Blue Army on Reddit. But it was just banter for the fights, right? That's all it was. But essentially, I joined and people thought it was a meme. People didn't take me seriously. And it was like a week or two after I joined, there was this one fight, and people always tell me about this fight, right? Because they remember it so vividly. But there was this one fight in a zone called Heart of the Forest. There was a castle. We were fighting against Money Guild, and for some reason, like, the enemy was actually beating us that day, right? We weren't playing very good or whatever, I don't know. But they were beating us, and they killed Mojo. And when they killed Mojo, no one picked up calls, and everybody started scattering. Everybody started, like, dying, right? So, like, just like today when the caller dies and everybody's like, what do we do, right? Exactly the same. So everybody started scattering, and I kind of just waited a minute. Like, I'm like, is anybody else going to call it? What do we do? But nobody else was picking up. So that's when I picked up. And I just picked up the calls because, again, I was a caller in Arch, right? And I literally just called maybe a couple engages and wiped the Money Guild. And then we took the castle basically for free, and it was over. And from that point forward, basically, you know, they wanted me to be like an actual, like, quote unquote official caller in Blue Army, right? And I didn't really want to. I didn't really care, right? And this is gonna be the theme for, like, literally the rest of my time in Albion as a whole, right? Like, I've never really cared to call, okay? And this is the thing, like, a lot of people have said, criticized me specifically. They'll say, like, oh, like, you know, you weren't a caller in Blue Army, or you don't know anything, or you weren't that good or whatever, right? But the thing is like, they asked me to call many times. Like, they were like, and leadership can tell you, like, if you guys talk to any of them, like, they'll tell you guys, I was asked multiple times by many people to call, right? But I didn't necessarily enjoy calling for the most part. I didn't really enjoy calling. Let me change the video now, because I think this is gonna go into some, yeah, because the video is gonna be over. Let me go back to where we were. That's a 2-minute video. All right, so yeah, so I've never really cared for calling, and the reason is because truthfully I feel bad when people kind of they feel upset or they feel down, and it's because of some shit I did to them, right? I'm a very like compassionate person, I guess, and so I don't like making people feel bad, man. And so when, you know, inevitably, it doesn't matter if you're the best caller in the game or the worst caller in the game, you're gonna make mistakes. At the end of the day, everybody makes mistakes, right? And so basically, I used to love that, making people fucking sad, fucking Whipple. So yeah, so I preferred not to call because I preferred not to basically upset people, right? But here's the thing, at the same time, I acknowledge when there's necessity, right? So whenever the main caller would die, if no one picked up, every single time I'd pick up, right? So many of the fights, and I was with Blue Army from season 5 to season 13, right? So I'm gonna kind of speed it up. So with Blue Army, and then season 13 we won the last season, so that was my 4th season win. So I've won 4 seasons in guilds that I've been in. And I think a lot, like, I think the majority of people can't really say that they've won four seasons individually, right? Even people who have hopped guilds multiple times to try to just go for season wins, a lot of them have not achieved 4 seasons. So that's, I guess, another achievement, right? But essentially, like, I've never really liked calling per se, but it doesn't mean that I haven't had the experience, because a lot of, like, I mean, I was with Blue Army for years, right? Every single time that Mojo would die, I'd pick up, right? Every single time. And in fact, like, very often times he would die, I'd pick up, and then he wouldn't get back until the end of the fight. So a lot of fights that you guys see, like of Blue Army fighting and stuff, a lot of them were me calling, right? At certain points. Another thing that I did a lot, and this is why people always say, oh, you're just a scout, you're not a caller, you don't know anything about calling, whatever, is because I did do a lot of scouting, man. I literally started scouting was not a thing. I started that, right? Now, when I say I started that, I didn't necessarily become the first, because I got the idea from Team Casualty back in season 3. There were a couple people who were basically running around and giving information, but they weren't doing it all the time, and they weren't doing it like at a distance. They were kind of just like one screen away from the caller, and they were giving that information, right? But that's where I got the idea from, that basically, and I turned it into where I would literally just be a legit battle scout, right? Where you're completely just mounted, running around, dismounting when you need to, do what you need to do, mount back up, running around, right? They weren't mounted as well. No, they weren't. You're right, Lolly. So I basically created what is called the battle scout now, right? And because of that, people have called me like, oh, you're just a scout. But see, that's the thing, right? For so many years, Blue Army beat the shit out of so many Zergs left and right. Why? Because we had better fucking info than the enemy, right? And you might say, oh no, that's not the only reason. Of course it's not the only reason. But that was the fucking difference. Because how many times did Blue Army fight against Zergs who were top quality Zergs, right? But we would still beat them. And the majority, and if you look at fights, and I do mean this, like if you look at old Blue Army fights, you're gonna see the reason Blue Army won so many fights was because of our rotations. We were fucking great at rotations. Nobody was as good as us. Why? Because we scouted and nobody else in the fucking game did. It's that simple. Now, when I say we scouted, it's not like all of Blue Army was out there scouting. No, I was one of the only ones at first, and then people started picking up from me, right? People started seeing that I was doing the battle scouting and stuff, so they started picking it up from me, right? And so I started teaching other people to do that stuff, right? So that's another thing that I basically created that a lot of people take for granted. They don't understand how important it is, especially now when fights are a lot more diverse with the amount of angles that you're fighting on, like how many fronts, right? Most fights in open world now are not 1v1. They're usually like fucking 1v2 or 1v3 or it's like a free for all, right? 1 versus 1, some shit like that, right? Like that's the truth. You need battle scouts, like you do, and so I basically started a lot of that, right? Because of that, people called me a scout. They said, oh, I'm not a caller, whatever. And it's because I never really told people like, oh yeah, like I called that fight or I did that or whatever, right? But put it this way, back in, what was it? The end of, no, January 2019, right? Whatever season that was, January 2019. This was pre-Queen, like right before Queen began. I was interviewed by the AOTV in their interview series, right? I was interviewed back then as a caller, right? I was interviewed with ex-Sarge and Boldy, right? So it's like we were all interviewed as callers, right? And so if you think about that, it's like I got to the point where I was actually like being known a little bit more, right? Sarge sounds kind of hot. Yeah. So, and in fact, that's another thing too. I've also been known a lot of time. Like, see, again, like I'm talking about the calling, I'm talking about the scouting, but one of the big things that I like people have ridiculed me a lot before for is the shit that I say about metas and the shit that I say about what weapons are good and useful, right? And so many times, man, I've said like, oh yeah, this weapon is fucking good, and everybody laughs at me. They're like, nah, you're stupid. So now I want you guys to look at Enigmatic. The Enigmatic staff was like, today is like, you absolutely need it. Like there's no Zerg that can go out on the field without a fucking Enigmatic staff. And if you are going out without an Enigmatic to a ZvZ, then you're doing something wrong, right? Like it's absolutely vital. Okay. Well, a few years ago, it wasn't that important. It wasn't that vital. But here's the thing. The Enigmatic itself hasn't really changed, right? Like it's not like they changed that made it way better. It's like, it hasn't really changed. There's some things that have changed, but you know, it's not that. I have been talking about the Enigmatic staff for a long time and people weren't picking it up. They were actually ridiculing me. And in fact, I have a clip from that interview with Chosen and Sarge and Boldy, where at the very end he asks us like, do you guys have any last comments or anything like that, right? And so I'm gonna just play it for you guys and you guys can see basically what I say. So again, remember, this was January 2019. You gotta. All right, so I'm gonna pull it back because I don't know exactly what time it is. All right, there it is. So
whether you've been playing the game for a month or since alpha, right? It's the perseverance that's going to be key, and also if you're going to be trying to call and you're going to try to learn how to be a top rate shot caller, at least for your guild, right? Whatever that might be. The best advice is learn. You gotta learn the game before you try to tell other people what to do, right? So look up different compositions, different weapons, what they do and stuff. Like, you can't be out there trying to call for a group and telling people that Soul Sights is terrible when like Soul Sight is like the meta. You know what I mean? And another thing, like I'm notorious for a very long time, and people will laugh, but you know what? Enigmatic is still great. Always has been. People just underestimate it. Same thing with Demonic. So test it out. You'll see.
I like it. So you guys hear right there, like the little laugh at the end, right? Because that was the response, right? That was the response that I would get basically from everybody, right? People would laugh at me. People would say, "Oh no, that's stupid." Enigmatic, like what, But see, this is what I'm saying. It's like, it's very easy to go and say, "Oh, like, no, you're a nobody," or "No, you don't know anything." But when people actually have like looked around and understand, like, the things that I say and the reason I say things, and they actually sit down and listen, like they realize that I do have a lot of experience in this game, right? I know what the fuck I'm talking about, and you know, now I did talk about demonic in that clip as well, right? But that one I was wrong with, right? Now, does it mean that I was wrong, or does it just mean that it never got picked up and eventually they changed it? I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, it didn't happen, so I guess I was wrong, right? But with enigmatic, I was dead on point. Another weapon was icicle, right? Icicle, I picked it up. I wasn't the first to pick it up, but I was the first to start pushing it onto Zergs, right? One of the ones that people still make fun of me for right now, because I still use them and nobody else still uses them, is guardian boots, right? Heavy mace. I literally started using heavy mace when I started playing the game. That's the weapon I started using. Now it's like absolute meta. Like if you don't have heavy maces in your Zerg, then you're kind of fucking up, right? And they haven't really changed the heavy mace. They only changed it to make it 5 seconds less cooldown. That doesn't make it go from, you know, useless to absolutely used in every aspect of the game. Like that doesn't account for that, right? The Q pool that they added over time, the silence pool, that has helped, but it's not a huge change to the weapon itself. What made the weapon is the fact that it had the snare charge and the E, the silence purge E, right? So those two things put together have made it very strong. But again, you know, people feel like you're taking credit where credit is not due when you say you've done things that are really big, right? Another one is Grail Seeker. When Grail Seeker first came out, most of the people weren't picking it up. Grail Seeker people were like, oh, Grail Seeker, yeah, I guess it's all right. It looks all right. People weren't really with it, right? They made a tiny little change where instead of like when you hit your E, it takes like a split second to proc. Yo, can you guys hear me? Oh, I'm back. All right. Yo, see, that's the shit that I don't know what's going on, man. I just got a little notification on the thing. Anyway, I don't know. That was odd. All right, you guys can hear me though, right? Put like an emote or something in the fucking chat so I know that you guys can hear me. Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. Whatever. So, here, let me reset this shit here. There it is. All right, so yeah, so basically, like, I've done a lot of these things where I've said I've kind of predicted different metas, and I've kind of predicted different weapons that have been used, right? Grail Seeker, again, like, I don't know where you guys cut out, but Grail Seeker was basically one of the ones that I picked up very early. A lot of people picked it up. I'm not taking credit for the whole thing. No, there's no way. But a lot of people were picking up Grail Seeker, but there was a lot of people that were against Grail Seeker, and then suddenly, and I was like one of the biggest proponents for Grail Seeker, right? And you know, it turned out that Grail Seeker, yeah, was really good. So anyway, after Blue Army season 13, season 14, I went with Militant and spent some time there, helped you know, get that guild going, and was teaching a lot of the guys there. Really good guild, fun dudes, fun group of dudes. And then I took a break for season 15. I took a break. Season 16, I think it was season 16 or 17. No, 16. Season 16, I went and I joined Take Care, and I mainly just wanted like fights, and I wanted content, things like that. So I joined them, and you know, we were fighting basically all over the map. And then after that, I went to Arch for season 17. And now I have, so as it is right now, I have one character in Militant, right? So I go and play with them every once in a while. And then I have another character in CIR, right? Because I want to get exposure to the war that's going on. So that's one of the things that I want to mention is I'm going to keep playing the game. And I'm going to keep joining, I guess, guilds that are constantly fighting. And the reason is because I can't teach you guys if I don't stay up to date with the game, right? It's just that simple. So I have to join these guilds and stuff like that. But I want to make sure that you guys understand I'm not going to necessarily take part in any specific war, right? And it's like, oh, well, CIR is in a war. Yeah, but I'm not like in leadership or anything. I'm not like pushing for anything, and I'm just playing the game, right? Like I'm just a regular member, right? And people have asked me to join specific guilds to try to help out with leadership and things like that. But I'm basically saying no to everybody because I'm just playing literally just to stay up to date with the game and help teach and things like that, right? So that's basically it. So I want to stay as unbiased as possible with the stream, right? So that's the goal. All right. So does anybody have any questions about anything that I've said so far? I know we haven't taken a break in a long time. And yeah, we're going to be closing it up soon too. So if you guys have any questions or anything about anything that's going on so far. Nope. No. All right. So let me get this one out here. Hold on. Did this shit? Can you guys hear me? I think it's spazzing again. You guys can hear me. Okay. All right. Anyway, so yeah, so I've called with so many different people in the game, right? I've called with King Mojo, Sucks, Knight, Boldy, Sarge, right, from Blue Army. I've called with Del Negro. I've called with Africa Now. I've called with Syndic. I've called with Mactepoc. I've called with Flomi. I've called with Ellipsis. It's Pull Up, Plebicus, Lint Liquor, Gluttony, Seed. Shit, the list goes on, right? I mean, almost every single like major caller of the game that has ever played the game, I've called with. Right, at some point. Like when I say I've called with them, it's not like I've called with them like me calling as well. It's more like I've played with them, right? So like I've played with them in some shape or form, whether it's TeamSpeak or whatever. And that's another thing that I wanted to mention. I also have a lot of experience with dealing with like macro, right? Basically rotating large zergs in different zones, cluster Q zones. So it's not like I've only kind of given info about fights within fights, but also like tactics and strategies that we use throughout the whole, like in a war scenario where there's like multiple zones to be fought over, shit like that, right? So anyway, that was a very fucking long time, right? So there it is. If ever there's, so from here on forward, if there's ever somebody that's like, oh, why would you know this, or like why should I listen to you, from now on I'm just gonna point to this fucking episode. This is why I wanted to do this part, right? It's because I just want to point to this and not have to deal with that, right? So the main reason that I'm making the stream in the first place, from my own personal perspective, right, is because when I started playing the game, there was no like real ZvZ learning options other than you just go out there and you die, right? Like that's it. That's literally it. Like there was nothing else. And so that's kind of terrible for economy, but it's also terrible for like time, right? Like it takes so much time. Like think about it. You mass up for a fight or whatever, a CTA, and then you may or may not get a fight. If you don't get a fight, then okay, you get no experience that day, I guess, in learning how to fight, right? And then you got to wait for the next day, and then you gotta do it over and over. It's such a slow process. You need to have something that's more continuous, right? And so this is why I wanted to make this stream, to make sure that people can learn outside of just like their fighting, right? When I started first playing and started calling all those things, I had to learn it the hard way. I had to like look at videos, review videos. This is why also like a lot of people say like I'm really good at reviewing videos, right? And it's because I literally did it for years for myself, where I was trying to understand the videos myself. So I've looked at so many fights for a long time, right? And that's what has made me progress. But at the same time, that takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of effort. And so I wanted to basically take my knowledge and just kind of give it to you guys, where you guys can learn from it and progress with that, right? So another reason that I'm doing this stream too is because like I said earlier, I'm going to college, right? I'm going to university for history, and my goal is actually to become a history teacher, right? And so essentially I'm kind of using this as a way to kind of helped me, you know, learn how to kind of make a plan and kind of like teach certain subjects. Now you might say, oh, well, like it's Albion. Yeah, but the subject doesn't necessarily matter. It's the experience in teaching that matters, at least for me, right? And so that's another reason that I'm doing it is to you know, try to get more experience with it. That's also why, like, I'm not necessarily gonna be like perfect with everything. Like, I promise you, the content is like it's not. I'm not giving you bullshit. I'm telling you the right things, but yeah, I'm still learning. Right, I'm learning how to do streams, and like, just like right now we had like the stream go down or whatever, and I don't know what the fuck to do. But like, it's, you know, I'm learning the streams, but I'm also learning, you know, how to teach, right? And so in both ways it helps, right? So yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode. If anyone has any questions about the stream or anything about like what we're going to be doing or whatever, remember the link to the YouTube is down at the bottom. You just got to scroll down if you're on Twitch. And then there's also the Discord. Make sure you join the Discord. You'll get updates to whenever I go live. Anybody have any questions or anything? If not, we're going to end up closing it up. All right, so the next stream is gonna be on Friday. I'm pulling up the schedule right now. So you're gonna post the VODs of the stream on YouTube as well. Yeah, I will. I'm gonna post it right after this, but I don't know how long that process takes, so I can't tell you guys like what time the video will be up for you guys to like share it or something. That's another thing. Like, make sure if you haven't hit the follow button, hit it. Yeah, it helps me a lot. Right, at the end of the day, I'm spending a shitload of time doing all these things, right? And so being able to see at least, you know, people like getting into it and shit, like, you know, it's nice. But yeah, so I'll be posting it on YouTube right after. I don't know how long it'll take, but as soon as I'm able to, I'm gonna upload it onto YouTube and it'll be there. So the next stream is gonna be episode 1, evolving metas, right? And I already talked to you guys about that earlier. What it's going to be, it's going to be all the different metas that have been in the game, and then we're going to be talking about the it's basically evolving metas part 2, but that's going to be the argument that I'm giving you guys, which is basically going to be the game has not changed, right? And that's because a lot of people make the argument that you know, a lot of the things that I say and the feedback that I give people, a lot of times people say that that's like old, right? Or like quote unquote, like, you know, just different, right? Like not up to date, right? And so, yeah, that's kind of what that stream is going to be about, is basically showing you that the game itself has not changed much, and the metas have only changed because of players' mentality, not because the game has been changing. So, all right, I appreciate you guys if you stayed through to the whole thing. I know it was like just a fucking, you know, talk fest with a bunch of redundancy, right? But these were just kind of things that I had to like kind of get out there so that I don't have to like reference back to any of this shit on the streams moving forward, right? Moving forward, the next streams are going to be focused on actual shit that matters and things like that. So thank you guys, and I'll see you guys on Friday at 00 UTC.
Individuals. What happen when y'all both reach the pinnacle? Things start to get physical. What make it worse? The motherfucker live with you, talking what you didn't do and what they did for you. You just praying for a miracle, cause they been with you through the good and the bad times, made it pivotal. All them feelings that you hold inside, it will hinder you, so let it go. What you didn't do and what they did for you. You just praying for a miracle, cause they been with you.
I know that you're trying to fix me, but I don't wanna be like you. If you wanna take it back to the 50s, maybe I'm not the guy for you. You're dying not to work until you die, you know that's true. Have you thought it through? Cause you love to tell me what to do. Say no, I'm not like you, I don't think that you get it. You should go and get out, I'll make you regret it. Someone like you should worry about. Maybe it's you who's upside down, and I'm not like you, I don't think that you get it. I don't wanna put on a smile, everybody expects me to. So you can keep your suit and your tie, gotta hope that it strangles you. Yeah, I do. You buy shit you don't need to impress the ones you hate, that's so fucked up. Cause everything you own just ends up owning you. So, dear society, you fucking suck. Say no, I'm not like you, I don't think that you get it. You should go and get out, I'll make you regret it. Someone like you should worry about. Maybe it's you who's upside down, and I'm not like you, I don't think that you get it. Ooh. Dear society, you suck. Am I the only one who's outside of this box? Who cares about your posts? I know they're only fake. Show us what you own and how much money that you make. Yeah, I know that you're trying to fix me, but I don't wanna be like you. Keep your stupid job, pretend that you're the person you wanted to be. And you're dying not to work, but work until you die. And you're dying not to work, but work until you die. You're dying not to work, but work until you die. You're die inside. Say no, I'm not like you, I don't think that you get it. You should go and get out, I'll make you regret it. Someone like you should worry about. Maybe it's you who's upside down. I'm not like you, I don't think that you get it. Yowza.
I'll take you where the sun is always shining. A bite of the apple found in Eden. Oh, 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 man is never sleeping. I'm up, oh, 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 a sweet stimulation. Guess this is your station. Better than the country, welcome to the city. But the girls are pretty and the boys are too. If you want a lover, you will find plenty. And they do it all, but they don't say I love you. Get your sexy on, get your sexy on, get your sexy on. Welcome to the city.